Thank you so much, Chair. Thank you so much, Mr. Kruger, Madame Strom, for coming today. It's October, and Canada is still burning out of control. We have never seen anything like this, and people are trying to come up with language to describe the impacts. Would you say that it has been a catastrophic year for climate-induced wildfire and flood?
I would say it's been a tragic year, and I think it's horrible what Canadians across this great country have experienced. I think we would say that. I think you're picking words. I would say it's been a tragic year for those involved.
Fair play. So you've been around the boardroom, Suncor, Imperial, you're former vice president of Exxon. Questions of liability are stuff that you guys talk about. So how much responsibility is your industry willing to take for the destabilized climate and the climate crisis that has forced 200,000 people out of their homes this summer?
You know, Mr. Angus, I can obviously sense your passion on this. I think global energy and greenhouse gas emissions and climate change are complex issues that are important to our society, and we all have a role in it, whether that's government, whether that's industry, and whether that's society. So I share your passion and concern on the topic, but I don't think it's a what fraction is one party versus the other.
Okay, I certainly passionate. We had so many people evacuated. They were having to escape by canoe this summer from wildfires in James Bay, which has never seen that before. So we are passionate. But I guess I question, because you're a former vice president of Exxon, and I'm looking here at some of your Exxon documents, that your internal scientific reports warned that it would be, quote, indeed catastrophic for a substantial fraction of the world's population if you didn't change course. A year later, your company, and you were on the management team, stated that prepared a briefing that again used the word catastrophic in terms of what you were doing. So what are the legal liabilities you think that your company and your involvement is for having suppressed that scientific evidence, that it's not just we're all part of this, you knew scientifically that what you were doing was destabilizing the planet?
Well, you have the advantage of looking at documents that I haven't seen.
I will give them to you.
Can I finish my reply?
Absolutely.
I did work for Exxon for 31 years around the globe in production operations and projects. I never worked in strategy or research. Okay. So, but if you have questions about what Exxon knew and when, they're probably best addressed to Exxon.
That's a good point.
Mr. Chair, point of order.
Right now, there's the lawsuits.
Of course, they're talking about time that would be like close to sort of when I was just born. So I don't know the back and forth that's going on here about whatever was done in Exxon 30 years ago. But I guess I would have been a teenager. Botox helps. Botox is helping. But I just might ask, Chair, if we could keep the questions on the topic of the motion, which is the purpose we're all here today for this meeting, which was moved by our colleague Charlie Angus. So perhaps he can just stay on the topic of the motion.
Mr. Angus, the floor is yours. Please continue with your questioning in line with the topic at hand today.
I'm certainly very close on the topic at hand. Well, I guess if you're saying I should talk to Exxon, right now the lawsuits against your industry are in the hundreds, and there's a pretty damning one against Suncor in Colorado. And you're saying I've got documents you haven't been able to read. I'll give you the documents. These are all the documents from your company. But part of it is about liability, and this is what I'm really interested in here, is that Exxon, when you were vice president, released a statement saying taking drastic action is unnecessary because the indications are that a warmer world would be more benign and warming will reduce mortality rates in the United States. That's a false statement. So today we have a letter from the Canadian medical doctors to the government stating that there's 1 in 7 premature deaths in Canada are now related to fossil fuel air pollution. So would you say that your industry is at a higher risk of these kind of lawsuits that are proliferating for having known the damages and refused to do something about it and refusing to tell the public that they were at risk?
I'd reiterate, the last I worked for Exxon was about 10 years ago. So your Exxon comments, if you want to talk about Exxon, I'm no longer the one to talk about. In terms of our industry...
Could we talk about Suncor, that you're being sued by Colorado?
That's actually why I thought I came here today. Yeah. I won't talk about active lawsuits. They're
Fair play.
go where I said earlier, what I think is important here, the importance of these issues, energy for people, for our quality of life, and doing it in such a way that's compatible with the long-term health and well-being of our climate. That's why we're here. That's why you're in your position. It's why I'm in my position
Absolutely.
to work together to address these critical
My
issues.
concern, Mr. Kruger, is that the evidence coming forward is that your industry knew that increasing production and increasing the burning of fossil fuels is destabilizing the planet. I've had people evacuated, people who cannot go home. We've had people lose their properties because of this, and we have the evidence that your industry knew. And so I'm amazed that this is all new to you, because it's a question of liability. And I noticed, for example, I can change subjects here if you don't mind, that there's a complaint at the Alberta Securities Commission that you've dropped the issue of liability to investors. Right now, this is a very concerning question, because the International Energy Agency has put out a report telling us as legislators not to put more investments in because of stranded assets, and yet since you've taken over Suncor, dropped the issues of liabilities. Do you not have an obligation to make sure that the public is aware of the risks and liabilities of further investments and of the damage that's being done to the planet that your industry has known about since the beginning?
Well, first of all, you're referencing, for others, you're referencing a Greenpeace complaint put in front of the Alberta Securities Commission that
make it irrelevant?
that is inaccurate.
But have you dropped your
Complaint-
liabilities?
No.
You haven't.
They're still contained within the report. And all of the obligatory liabilities and risk are reported, and this is a voluntary report, and it's in there. It happens to be in a different area that apparently wasn't read.
So
but
do you
it hasn't
believe that you
changed.
are at higher risk of
Thank
liability?
you. Thank you, Mr. Angus, and thank you, Mr. Kruger. The time